John Lusk here of Lusk Archery Adventures. Today I'm going to be testing another broadhead that's been around for a few years and gained quite a following. I've been intrigued about it for a while and finally got my hands on one, and I've gotten around to testing it. And it's the tooth of the arrow. That's what it's called, the tooth of the arrow. Cool name. There's the little package that this single comes in, and even on their website they advertise that you can get a free sample of a broadhead. They're so confident that you're going to like it. That's pretty cool. They have a guaranteed satisfaction. What's unique about these heads is what's not unique, it's a 4-blade. You go, okay, 4-blade, similar to a slick trick in design. If you look at it, each of the blades are exactly the same cutting diameter, so it's a true 4-blade head. It's a little bit bigger than the Slick Trick Magnum. Rather than being 1 1/8 inch cutting diameter like the Slick Trick Magnum, this is 1 3/16 cutting diameter. So it makes a little bit wider hole. But what does make it unique is that this is machined out of a single chunk of high carbon steel. So there's no blades to be replaced. It's just one solid chunk. So in a negative way, you can't just replace the blades and put in new sharp ones. In a positive way, it's a pretty stout, strong design. And being this high carbon steel, it's not too difficult to sharpen anyway. So it's intriguing to see this. I've spun them. They spun very true. They fly well for me. I've not tested them at super long ranges, but they do fly well. I think through a well-tuned bow, I can't understand why they wouldn't fly well at longer ranges. I've heard good things about them. Actually, I've heard really good things about the smaller one, their standard one. But this is the XL, the larger one, which intrigues me the most because I just like to make a big hole if I can in things. And I'm excited to see how well it performs. I'm going to shoot it into my broadhead box where I've got 4 layers of MDF, and they're 1/2 inch each, and 2 of those layers have a rubber foam layer in front of it to simulate hide and a little bit of soft tissue there in the beginning and the end. And then we'll see how far it penetrates, how the blades hold up to that penetration through the MDF. Then I'm going to shoot it at an MDF board at an angled level to see how it does through that. And then if it's still doing well, I'm going to shoot it into some steel plate. And then if it passes all that, I'm going to shoot it into some concrete. So let's see how the tooth of the arrow does. Oh, and I might add, this is the 125 grain version. And as always, I'm going to be using the Mammoth arrows by Bishop Archery because they're indestructible, man. I've shot this one arrow into so many different steel plates and concrete bricks and so many other things, and it's still going really strong. So I really like this. It's the FOC King arrow. Careful how you read it if you're looking at the spelling, but it really holds up well and it does great in this testing. So let's see how the tooth of the arrow does. I'll be shooting this with, again, those 450 grain Bishop Mammoth arrows, and I'll also be using my Bowtech SR6, which is at 27 inches and 72 pounds. Now, for comparative sake, you can look at the other videos that I've made testing fixed blade heads. I've shot the QAD Exodus into the same medium, and the SICK F4 into the same medium, and the Solid Legend. So you can compare the penetration and durability with those heads if you check out those tests as well. But for this one, I'm just going to test the tooth of the arrow. Let's go see. Penetration-wise, this did just about like most of the heads I've tested have done so far. It went well into the second layer of MDF. So it went through that initial rubber foam mat, and then through the first layer, and then it almost buried the blades all the way into the second layer, and you can see it protruding out, bulging out the back end there. It didn't actually break through with the blade, but it pushed the board out there just quite a bit. Let's pull it apart and see how it held up. So if we examine the head after it went through the wood, it held up extremely well. The blades are in great shape. They're still remarkably sharp. They bite into my nail. It doesn't look like they were dulled at all. And I should add as well here that I said earlier that it penetrated about the same as all the other heads. That's true. However, because it's 4 blades and each blade or each two blades covers a diameter of 1 3/16 inches. That means the total tissue being cut is 2.75 inches. If you see here in the hole that it made, you look and go, okay, it's 1 3/16 this way, 1 3/16 this way. So it's a total of 2.75 inches of tissue being cut. For comparative sake, if you look at the Exodus, which I shot earlier, I really love the Exodus, that's a total cutting surface or total tissue cut of 1.875. So with the 3 blades of an Exodus and a 1 1/4 inch cut, it's 1.875 total tissue being cut, whereas with the tooth of the arrow here in their XL model, it's 2.75. So it penetrated as well, just about as well as the Exodus, better than the other heads that I've tested so far, and yet the cutting tissue cut, the total cut, is about an inch more than most of those heads, so that's pretty remarkable. Now I'm going for the angled shot. I got a layer of MDF down there, 1/2 inch at about 45-degree angle. Went straight in. Let's go see. Here's the head sticking out just as it went into the Reinhardt behind it. It protruded that far, which is very similar to the SICK F4 that I tested a while ago. You can see that in the video. However, again, this has about almost 1 inch more cut than the SICK S4. So to penetrate that well, again, is pretty impressive. And the blades are extremely sharp. There's no nicks. Looking really good. Now let's shoot it into the 22 gauge steel plate. Ooh, looked like the sparks flew on that one. Okay, look at the hole that this thing made. I gotta say, I'm pretty impressed with that. I mean, it is like a giant square was cut out of this steel. I've never seen anything like that. For comparative sake, if you look over here, let's see where it is. Right here. This is the SICK S4 hole, which I thought was pretty good in and of itself. It wasn't a slit. With that crossblade, you get that. But if you compare it to this, dang, that is a big hole. And then when you look at the blades, man, they still just look pristine. They're in very, very good shape. There's no nicks. They still cut into my thumbnail. Really good. Impressive. Here we go into the Cinder Block. This is a final test that I do of the fixed blade heads. I don't do this and I don't do the steel typically with the mechanicals, but when you're using a fix, you're typically doing so because you really want to have some structural integrity and blade strength that's above and beyond what a mechanical can do. So I just like to test the limits. Not many heads hold together after hitting the cinder block. A lot of them take chunks out, like you can see down there in the block itself, but very few heads hold together when I'm doing this test in the cinder block. There's only been a few that have made it, but some of them take good chunks out of the cinder block, but then just kind of bend or fall apart. Let's see how the tooth of the arrow does. Here's the chunk that it took out of the cinder block. Finger goes right into it, nice chunk. And then if you look at the head itself, it did remarkably well. Completely held together. The nose got covered in concrete, and it got, a bit nicked up there from the concrete. But I would say that handled that, that's amongst the top few in terms of structural integrity that I've tested. That's right up there with the Q80 Exodus and the Muzzy Trocar and the Trophy Taker ATAC. I think the only ones that may have done better are the Bishop Archery and the Iron Will. But man, for the price, this is one impressive head. I gotta say, I'm pleasantly surprised.